Welcome, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Welcome to the Assembly Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections. Will Committee Secretary please take roll?
Assemblyman DeLong.
Present.
Assemblywoman Dickman.
Here.
Assemblyman De Silva.
Here.
Assemblywoman Gonzalez.
Here.
Assemblyman Hibbets.
Here.
Assemblyman MacArthur.
Here.
Assemblywoman Brittany Miller.
Here.
Assemblyman C.H. Miller.
Here.
Assemblywoman Monroe Marino.
Here.
Assemblywoman Newby.
Here.
Assemblyman Yeager. Chair Gorlow.
And I'm here. Thank you very much. Please mark Speaker Yeager present when he arrives. Today we're going to have our hearing on Assembly Joint Resolution 8. We also have a work session. Before we begin, I do want to go over some housekeeping. Please remember to silence all your devices. Check them now, because I hear them ringing every once in a while. If you wish to testify, please come up to the desk and make sure you're pushing the microphone button. Speak and spell your name slowly for the record. It helps our secretaries. We do expect courtesy and respect in our interactions during the meeting, even if we may not agree with one another's positions. We want to be nice to each other. Committee members will be using their laptops to view handouts and other documents. Please do not view this as a sign of disrespect or inattention. I do want to let you know that we are having difficulty calling in. We're hoping that that's going to be resolved by the end. But if not, you can submit testimony to the committee secretary, and it will be uploaded for the record. And with that, let us get started. As I mentioned, we're going to start with AJR 8. I'm going to invite Assemblyman De Silva to come to the table to present, along with our Vice Chair, Assemblywoman Miller. And AJR 8 urges Congress of the United States to deschedule marijuana as a Schedule I controlled substance. And you may begin when you are ready. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Chair. Good afternoon, Chair Gorlow and committee members. Thank you so much for inviting us to present this bill. For the record, I'm Assemblywoman Brittany Miller, and I represent Assembly District 5 in Clark County. I, along with Assemblyman Ruben De Silva and Attar Hasabullah, the Executive Director of the ACLU Nevada, are here to present Assembly Joint Resolution 8, which urges Congress to deschedule marijuana as a Schedule I controlled substance. As AJ 8 builds upon decades of Nevada law and reflects the will of the people in the majority of states across the country, the people of Nevada have enshrined the right to use both medicinal and recreational cannabis in our state constitution. It has been legalized for medical use in 37 other states and for recreational use in 20 other states. Despite widespread support for legalization, cannabis remains a Schedule I controlled substance. Federal scheduling places state legal cannabis businesses in a difficult position. So what most people don't realize about me is that I also have a banking background. I was a trainer for 2 major banks, both here in Nevada and back in Michigan. And as a trainer, I actually trained all of the state and, more importantly, federal regulations pertaining to banking. So I can personally attest to the challenges that we have when it comes to still the Schedule I classification of marijuana. Because what it happens is this is the burden that's pressed upon businesses specifically. Cannabis is still federally illegal. Therefore, distributors are locked out of traditional banking and financing institutions that understandably are unwilling to risk criminal prosecution. Businesses lose out on the many services and protections offered by the banking institutions that could really simplify their efforts. This means that a cannabis business is forced to operate with large amounts of cash on hand, which creates a variety of safety risks for both employees, owners, and consumers. It is time for our booming cannabis industry to be freed from the burdens of outdated laws based more on narrative than facts. It's time for Congress to support the will of the people, if not the states. So far this session, there have been many bills presented that include the use of cannabis and hemp. Our businesses, our medical facilities, those in agriculture and farming, those who work with animals, are demonstrating that there are multiple ways to use cannabis and hemp to further assist Nevadans. This resolution urges Congress to remove cannabis from the list of Schedule I controlled substances, which would allow Nevada businesses to operate with greater safety and financial security. At this time, I would like to turn it over to my co-presenter, Assemblywoman. First female majority legislature, I'm sorry. It happens. Assemblyman Miller is just happy it's not him this time. So to Assemblyman DeSiva.
Thank you, Assemblywoman, and thank you, distinguished colleagues, for allowing us to present this bill before you all today. As my colleague, Assemblywoman Miller, mentioned, this is a pressing issue, and it is hampering an industry that is rampantly growing in our state. I remember back in 2016 knocking doors to get that ballot initiative passed, and we are still a long ways to really allowing this industry to thrive, not just here in our state, but at the national level. And one of the most important things here is the fact that that cannabis is a Schedule I controlled substance. And with just those remarks, I want to get to my actual written remarks before we get into the technical aspects of this bill. So under the Controlled Substance Act, Schedule I drugs are those which have no accepted medical use and a high potential for abuse. Despite medical research that has confirmed cannabis's many beneficial medical uses, it is still classified as a Schedule I substance. AJR 8 urges Congress to correct that error and remove cannabis from Schedule I. In states where cannabis is legalized for medical use, cannabis is prescribed to treat a wide variety of debilitating medical conditions, including cancer, multiple sclerosis, HIV/AIDS, epilepsy, and glaucoma. Despite widespread medical use and low potential for abuse, patients are unable to receive prescription health insurance coverage for medical marijuana due to federal scheduling. Without health insurance coverage, costs are astronomical. In order to purchase medical marijuana, patients must first obtain a state medical marijuana registry card, which can cost as much as $350 and must be renewed regularly. Once the card is obtained, monthly costs for medical marijuana range from $50 to $1,500. AJR 8 urges Congress to acknowledge the medicinal value of cannabis by removing it from Schedule I. This, in turn, should allow patients to receive prescription health insurance coverage for medical marijuana, helping relieve the financial burden placed on patients. And at this time, I want to invite Mr. Athar Hazibullah to go into the more technical specificities and aspects of this bill.
Thank you. For the record, Athar Hasibullah, first name spelled Athar, last name Haseebullah. I'm the executive director for the American Civil Liberties Union of Nevada, also a civil rights lawyer, very familiar with cannabis policy, both at the statewide level and at the national level. I'm going to go over the technical specifics of this resolution, but I'll also mention there's finally, on my end, only one amendment in place as I know of right now, which is to add a slew of co-sponsors, bipartisan co-sponsors. Since I submitted this proposed amendment yesterday, there's been 7 additional co-sponsors who have expressed a desire to sign on. Again, we think this is a very bipartisan, smart approach, and I'll go through what this looks like. So, as Assemblyman De Silva had mentioned, Schedule I substances at the federal level are defined as having no currently accepted medical use and a high potential for abuse. AJR 8 seeks to shift Congress and urge Congress to support legislation removing cannabis from the Schedule I list. Schedule I list contains, of the Controlled Substance Act, contains the most significant drugs that are severe out there. Heroin is on Schedule I, but then we look to Schedule II, where there's some medical value. What drugs are on Schedule II? Fentanyl, methamphetamine, cocaine, Xanax, all on Schedule II. What are the barriers for being on Schedule I? You can't bank normally. So while we've cleared up stuff, and I'm showing up today to congratulate Nevada on being a lead in a space and not finishing last, we're actually one of the pioneer states in the country that's sort of shifted away from this, because 3 decades ago in 1990, as the resolution mentions, we had back-to-back ballot initiatives, and subsequently the medical value associated with cannabis was inscribed into Article 4 of the Nevada Constitution. So as a constitutionalist, we put that forward first and foremost. This has already been determined to be the will of the voters. Regardless of people's personal decisions or views on cannabis, whether or not it has medical value has been fully enshrined into the Nevada Constitution. During the last year, there's been litigation around this issue in the state, at the state level. ACLU brought forth litigation. Cannabis is not on the Schedule 1 list in the state of Nevada, but it is on the Schedule 1 list federally, and that single barrier has forced businesses to operate in a cash capacity. You're talking about tens of millions of dollars that are being forced to be utilized in a cash capacity. And nobody really has an understanding or justification as to why methamphetamine and cocaine, fentanyl are on Sched 2 and cannabis is on Sched 1. Everybody has theories, right? But it's clear that it's become an issue. This resolution in and of itself is straightforward and it reads as is. The reason why we encourage you to support it is because there's a series of states that are now doing this across the country as the cannabis marketplace has opened up to make sure that it's pulled off Schedule 1 in part because of the banking aspect, but also in part because the medical value that's already been determined by most states to exist. The overwhelming majority of states now have either a provision in place for recreational cannabis use, but more importantly for medical cannabis use, which is something that is the precursor to falling within the definition of Schedule 1. Again, I'm happy to share the names of the additional sponsors. Co-sponsors from this morning, I can also send that via email, but it's really ran the gamut. And if there's other folks that are willing to come on, it sends a powerful message. Now, does Congress actually have to do this? No. However, if multiple states are engaged in this and multiple states are currently engaged in pushing resolutions like this, Delaware is an example, and our language quite clearly mirrors most of their language. It creates more momentum for doing it. The other thing is it makes Nevada's position clear, right? It doesn't impact the actual law here in the state of Nevada, but it makes the position clear that cannabis has medical value and we're seeking its pull from Schedule 1 at the federal level so that our banks can open up, so that we don't have to continue to have businesses operating with heavy amounts of cash and or placing money in whatever capacity they need to, in whatever mechanism they can to have it transported elsewhere to be able to bank. So it creates a more consistent environment. The one thing that has come up in questions pretty consistently is, does the resolution specifically bar Congress, or does it appear that Congress shouldn't move it to another schedule? Well, in Nevada, we didn't need to put it on another schedule because there's a comprehensive regulatory regime that's associated with cannabis. The CCB now is dealing with it, so it's not treated in the same fashion. That it's not been done at the federal level. Maybe they'll do it at the federal level, so that's up to them to decide, right? But at the minimum, Schedule 1 will allow the banking apparatus and other elements there to be able to open up so that things become normalized in that regard. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Can I just stress something before we go into the questions? When we say large amounts of cash, I want you to imagine, your local local liquor store, convenience store, your 7-Eleven, something like that. And the amount of, if everything in that store or corner gas station.
You are in the meeting now.
I was wondering about that. It's been quite a day, so I'm glad to have that confirmation. But, imagine a gas station or something, and if all of their transactions in business had to be conducted by cash only. We live in a time where we're so used to, most of us don't even carry cash, right? It's credit card. Most of us don't even write checks anymore to pay bills. But imagine that gas station if every transaction for that week was done in cash. And then that physical cash had to be transported somewhere by someone to a specific place. And it wasn't going to the bank. This is just, there's been a few issues here in the legislature that I won't even go into more detail about because I don't want to put people more at risk because I already understand how vulnerable it is. So the last thing I want to do is tell the public or give anyone any kind of ideas. But again, it's a serious issue. If anything, just for the actual safety of everyone involved in this business, those who work there, those who have to transport it, those that the money's delivered to, and have to count it and be accountable for it. So again, we all appreciate our banks and our financial institutions because of the safety and security and protection that they offer us. And that's what we want to offer to our legitimate cannabis businesses as well. And with that, I believe we're open for questions.
Thank you very much for the presentation. All right, committee members, any questions? Assemblywoman Dickman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And actually, I don't have a question, it's a comment. I don't think it's any big secret that I was not in favor of legalizing recreational marijuana, but the people have spoken. It's a legitimate business, and the money issue is huge, the fact that they have to deal in cash. But the other thing that I never really thought of was what you brought up about the fact that it can't be paid for by insurance for medical use. I mean, that's just wrong. I mean, I know it works for a lot of people. And so anyway, I guess the question is, if we can get this, is it the only way we can get those things to happen is by taking it off the Schedule 1?
For the record, Atara Sibula, ACLU of Nevada, yes. And in the state of Nevada, cannabis is not only not on Schedule 1 based on the court order that we had, it's not on any schedule because it's regulated by the Cannabis Control Board. So there's a regime in place, but the issue becomes at the federal level when you have preemption on certain issues, it still poses challenges. So yes, on that front, because we run into conflicts between state law and between federal law. I think a lot of times what many people in our space do is we tend to focus on criminal justice reform issues and people being convicted and incarcerated under certain issues, right? And sometimes that happens at the federal level as well. But one thing that's not focused on is the other elements. The number of federal charges pursuant to or versus state charges when it comes down to cannabis under a scheduling status is minor. But the impact that it has on other elements, including banking, including insurance reimbursements on something medical, are actually rather more vast. And from that standpoint, just from the definition, the fact that our state has already codified the medicinal value of cannabis, as have dozens of states at this point, it really makes very little sense for its maintenance on the Schedule 1 list, particularly as we're having conversations about the impact of a Schedule 2 substance within this very building right now.
And Assemblywoman, I'll add a little bit more there. Ruben De Silva for the record, by the way. So, I think an excellent example of this, and it really hinges upon the actual the resolution here, urging Congress itself to deschedule cannabis or remove it from Schedule 1, is the fact that, one of our biggest healthcare providers out there, the Veterans Administration, we cannot utilize cannabis as a for medicinal purposes, and that is because of the fact that it is a federally controlled substance. There is a ton of data out there, a ton of research that shows that there is this could be a huge boon for vets, particularly those who are suffering from things like PTS. And the sole barrier for that has been the fact that this is a Schedule 1 substance. And that's not even mentioning, all the other federally provided healthcare apparatuses that we have in place. So that's just one example of how this simple inhibition is hampering the not just the growth of an industry, but also the actual allocations of healthcare benefits. So that's another thing that I would point to you specifically on that, Assemblywoman, with your regards to healthcare and medicinal purposes.
Thank you. I really appreciate you getting those things on the record and that's why I'm one of those names on that amendment. Thank you, Chair.
You're very welcome. Next, we'll go to Assemblywoman Newby.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and thank you for this bill. I'm not yet on it, but I'd like to be added if I could. I was reading over the supporting documents on this bill, and there was a letter from Kevin Dick from the Washoe County Health District, and he goes into a discussion of prescribing marijuana and insurance coverage as well. And then at the end of this paragraph, he says, without a schedule change, insurance companies cannot cover treatment, which we've talked about, or medications, and the effective medicine is not accessible at pharmacies. So I'm wondering if it's off the Schedule 1, if this works, and then doctors can prescribe it, not just recommend it, and individuals can have it covered by their insurance. Does that mean that it would possibly move to pharmacies in terms of distribution outside of our sort of regulatory setup that we have?
For the record, Atara Sibula, ACLU of Nevada, unlikely in the state of Nevada, Assemblywoman. And the reason why is because, as I mentioned, when the CCB came into place and there was the advent of recreational cannabis in the state of Nevada, there was a shift away from pharmaceutical intervention in that way. But one thing that has happened is if you look at inpatient facilities, for instance, or hospital settings, right, could end up modifying that, especially if they're subject to a public contract. And oftentimes what ends up happening is there's interference with a public contract in large part because there's still a federal prohibition. This is still listed as a Schedule 1 at the federal level. At the state level, again, there's been a shift beyond that, and we recognize enforcement hasn't necessarily come down in that same exact manner. But as it stands right now, unlikely for pharmacies within Nevada to carry it. May end up happening. It's something probably for them to discuss, but it's actually been intervened upon. The bigger issue becomes when we look at states that have not yet legalized medical cannabis, and there's a few of them left. What do? And normally they would end up going through the process of having it in a pharmacy, and especially a state that doesn't or has not yet considered recreational cannabis where there's not dispensaries available, and the only opportunity to receive it would either be through a pharmacy at that point in those states, or alternatively to purchase it through some other means that may not necessarily be lawful and may not be regulated in the same manner.
And so I'll add to that sometimes some of those other means. And I think that Nevadans, and especially veterans, I don't want to speak for veterans when I have a veteran right next to me, but it continues to be consistent what he said about veterans who would prefer that they could use this instead of all of the pharmaceuticals for certain issues that they have. But remember, when we're looking at things federally, so other means may be, because we also know there are also doctors in the state who would prefer to prescribe cannabis for certain issues. And if you're in a state and yet it's available in how many other states, they're not even able to order it over the internet at that point. So this way that everyone would also have that freedom too. And that's why it's so important. Again, if states, there are still states where it hasn't been legalized, but to make it accessible to everyone and doctors and patients who would want to utilize it.
Thank you very much. Committee members, any other questions? Assemblywoman Danielle Monroe Moreno.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And you may have mentioned this in your presentation. If you did, please forgive me. And thank you for the presentation. This, as you said, will not force Congress to make any changes, but it's encouraging them. Do you know of any other legislative bodies that are doing the same thing and sending a message to Congress to do this?
For the record, Atara Sibula, ACLU of Nevada. Yes, Delaware is currently considering a mirroring legislation. There's a couple other states that aren't yet that far along in their session, or they have full-time legislative sessions where they're working through that. Nevada is a pioneer in this space right now. We're also the first state right now to fully descheduleize cannabis, and it came via court order, but rooted in the same principles that the actual definition for Schedule 1 requires that it have no medical value for use in treatment. And our voters in this state 3 decades ago made that clear by way of referendum, and it's been enshrined in the Constitution. So these other states that are considering it now, the hope would be that as we continue to take steps, and our timeline is sort of similar right now to Delaware's, that it starts to create the momentum and bandwidth there. But the other thing is that it becomes a powerful tool for Congress to look at and say, hey, where does a state fall on an issue, right? And I know sometimes resolutions in this building don't always get viewed with the same sort of credibility unless it's modifying the Nevada Constitution. This is a powerful way of actually demonstrating the power behind a resolution, because it gives the official position of the state of Nevada through the legislature to share that this is what we want Congress to be able to do, so our banks can open up and we can have normalcy in the other elements we have just spoken about.
And I'm not going to ask you to identify them individually, but have you had conversations with our federal delegation members to see if they are in supportive of this resolution?
For the record, Atara Sibula, ACLU of Nevada, I have, or their staffs. I recognize that they're also busy. Those that have responded to me, without naming them, have said yes, they were encouraging of it. They did support it. Obviously, one of the things that we were mindful of was they don't necessarily need it, but it does provide them some level of cover to go back and say, hey, this is what my constituents want, and someone from an assembly district or a senate district across the state of Nevada has suggested this is what we wanted. Again, from our vantage point at the ACLU's end, you're a representative body and you represent different stakeholders based on different population size, and it becomes more powerful to have each of these communities really share that this is what we want is off Schedule 1. Again, go in a different direction, but it's the biggest thing from our vantage point is the Schedule 1 element. We would have, if it was just up to the ACLU, we would have said, hey, let's make the argument to just deschedule as a whole. But we also recognize there's other elements Congress may want to consider. We don't know what those are, and that might end up being what happens, but there's no possible way that anyone can reconcile what the definitions are currently for cannabis versus what the definition is for Schedule 1 and attempt to reconcile it unless they say that the Nevada Constitution is entirely incorrect, the voters were incorrect, and or science is incorrect.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And before I go to Assemblyman DeLong, I kind of had a question on this realm as well, because it doesn't say what we want to deschedule it to. It's just from one. And you'd mentioned Schedule 2 was fentanyl, methamphetamines, and some other things. I'm like, that's a little scary even to put it in 2. So in your crystal ball, where would you see this actually going, or where would you like to see it going?
For the record, Atara Sibula, ACLU of Nevada, if I had my crystal ball, this would be descheduled completely because it's been utilized in many states at this point in a business capacity, which is kind of inconsistent. It's not treated in the same way as a scheduled substance by most states at this point, right? Regardless of whether it falls on their state scheduling order, it's not treated that way, which is why we're treating it in a different fashion. Our position is that if they pull it off Schedule 1, and it's not asking for rescheduling, it's asking for descheduling from Schedule 1 specifically. It's not saying add it to Schedule 2, 3, or 4. Or it's not saying what they should do afterwards. It just is making a declaration that the notion that it remains on Schedule 1 is incorrect, and any legislation that pulls it off Schedule 1 is what should happen, and that's what ought to happen based on the conflicting language and standards associated with that definition versus the actual implications of reality with respect to the use of cannabis in 2023.
Thank you very much. And with that, we will go to Assemblyman DeLong.
Thank you, Chair. This resolution makes a lot of sense, particularly from the business aspect. Having those dispensaries operating in cash does not make any sense, and for them to not have banking opportunities or other financial instruments available is discouraging business in this state, which is not good. So I'd like to be added to the list.
Thank you for that, Assemblyman DeLong. I'm keeping a running tab. I think we're up to like 30 individuals now. So
I think we have 63 spots available total.
And Ruben De Silva for the record, and I'll just add to that real quickly, and then you're absolutely right there, Assemblyman DeLong. It is inhibiting business in big ways. And before our vice chair here resurrected this bill, I want to say thank you for that. For bringing this bill back. We were having several conversations with many stakeholders, including the Board of Pharmacy, folks who were kind of maybe even apprehensive about having this conversation. But that really was the real the stake on which they bore the entire argument, was the fact that at the federal level, this was something that was a Schedule 1 substance. And the mere fact of removing that, as so many of our elected officials, I think the Marijuana Control Act is a good example of this. Senator Cory Booker, I believe, is the sponsor. Just removing that from Schedule 1 to whatever schedule will really prohibit that sort of an argument to be made, and will allow us to make this a bankable substance, allow monies that have been accrued through the industry to be spread more evenly throughout the country. So this again, and one more point I want to make is the fact that when it comes to the idea of resolutions, that is one of the greatest ways that we as a state can show the federal government that in our own little nook and corner here of the country, we are making an official statement, a public statement, now that this is the official sort of status of this state. This is our official belief, and it's something that we should be able to convey to the federal government. And again, hopefully, if we pass this this resolution. But all 63, hopefully all 63 members of the legislature signed on to it. We will be making a very strong statement. Thank you.
And I would also add that just this session, I have seen so many innovative, different forms of legislation come forward to use cannabis and marijuana that I wouldn't have thought of. And again, I know we're not supposed to link one piece of legislation to another, but just the innovative ways that it can be used. But again, the question always comes up, but what about the feds? And so where there's so many other bills right now that would, for animals, for agriculture, for all different types of activities, as well as medicinal, that, again, we shouldn't have to continue to worry about what about the feds when the people of Nevada have spoken. So I think this eliminates all of that fear and allows freedom to move forward with all other types of innovative ideas and strategies.
Hey, thank you very much. Committee members, any other questions? Assemblywoman Gonzalez.
Thank you. Oh, thank you so much for bringing this bill forward. I always laugh when people talk about checks because I never had to write a check before I ran for office. And in just the conversation nationally, right? Like, I feel like everywhere I go, we're in a coin shortage, it's cashless, right? Like, so I think just nationally we're moving away from just dollars in general. But my question is, I'm wondering how this would impact the way that we collect taxes. Like, how does that work? Does it make it more streamlined? What does that look like? Thank you.
For the record, Atar Hasibullah, ACLU of Nevada. Thank you, Assemblywoman, for the question. With respect to tax collection in the state, when you're operating cash businesses, it becomes challenging, obviously, from an accounting perspective. From our vantage point, this may give the ability to make sure that that is more sound. But we will say that right now, I have spoken to a slew of different owners of cannabis, either dispensary facilities or cultivation facilities, and the way that they handle their money is widely different, and I'll never put that on the record for legal purposes, but because it is handled in a widely different capacity, it poses challenges. They should be able at this point to open up a bank account like anyone else. We're talking about I believe $8 billion industry nationwide at a minimum, and probably far more than that, far larger than many other segments as a whole. And despite that, we find ourselves in positions where each of these businesses is now forced to divert extraordinary resources to better understanding what the collection process might look like, not only for the income that they're receiving and attempting to bank, but how they're managing their taxes, how they're keeping their books, and what the end result ends up looking like in terms of how they're reporting back. And thank you for being a co-sponsor. I will apologize to the committee. I tried my best to keep track of everyone that came on as a co-sponsor, so if I missed anybody, chalk it up to our heart, but I think we had most everybody that had responded from the committee, specifically in the rest of the legislature, to come in as a co-sponsor. And if I got anything wrong, I'm sure Assemblywoman here will tap me momentarily and tell me I was wrong. Thank you.
Would you like us to do a hand count?
That would be lovely. I didn't want to ask, but I appreciate you asking.
So
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to sign up for hand count for them? Well, put your hand up if you want to be on. Okay. All right. Committee members, any other questions? Okay, seeing.
I would just like to say that, again, I have been in this building. It's weird to think that now we're the veterans and in our fourth session, but the bipartisanship and the working, I mean, we're Nevada. We try to work together. We try to meet where we can on many, many issues, but this truly has become such a bipartisan initiative and effort, and I just, really want to tell our colleagues that have a different letter in front of their political party, thank you so much. Because again, it really is putting Nevadans first and business first and operating as one state as we all are. And we're all here to represent one state. And I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And with that, we will go on to testimony in support. So thank you again for your presentation. If you would like to provide testimony in support, please come up to the table. Please remember, each person has 2 minutes. Push the microphone, state and spell your name slowly for the record. It helps our secretary. And Whomever wants to go first can start when you're ready. So thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Chairman Gorlow, members of the Assembly Committee on Legislative Operations. My name is Brian Wachter. I serve as the Senior Vice President of the Retail Association of Nevada. We represent many businesses, especially in the marijuana industry, but also a lot of businesses that do business with the federal government. And when you're doing business with the federal government, they require you to follow the rules that the federal government has. And so it's made it challenging for several of our businesses to have this dichotomy with state law and federal law. We appreciate you using your authority as a legislature to request that Congress make some changes and deschedule it. We are very supportive of that effort, and we urge its support. Thank you.
Will Adler here with the Sierra Cannabis Coalition. AJR 8 takes the right stance in asking Congress to do the same thing that the majority of Nevadans did in decriminalizing cannabis. Cannabis legalization is a long overdue topic when it comes to the federal government, and the descheduling of it has been a sluggish one when it comes to what happens in federal politics. Many cannabis businesses and employers suffer to this day with the bifurcated legal status of cannabis being legal at a state level but illegal federally. That does a lot of implications on the business owners and the employees who work in our businesses. Today, yes, you might be able to get some banking or some access to a bank account, but you cannot actually get a loan or actually do a good depository system with your employees today. And a lot of our employees, that actually has an impact on them getting a mortgage because they have to claim cannabis as their primary income source. A lot of banks won't actually bank them a loan for their future in getting a house because it is federally illegal still. So it is a complex issue. It does have a long and tepid history, but Sierra Cannabis Coalition would like to have you guys support AJR 8 and what it would like to do for streamlining the legality of cannabis. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Daniel Stewart with Brownson Hyatt on behalf of PISOS, who is a licensed medicinal and recreational cannabis company. I urge strong support for this measure. I've represented a lot of different cannabis companies and companies that do business with cannabis companies that are regularly trying to figure out how to navigate this quagmire. I could go on with the horror stories, things like payroll companies absconding with millions in cash without paying any of the taxes, employment taxes on the employees that they thought they were going to because the money was in cash. I know people that have used, not clients, be very clear, I know people that have used the federal government to launder their money. They will overpay their taxes and then get a refund. Now they have a check that's clean and they go and take it to the bank account. This, whatever your feelings on legalized cannabis, operating under this fiction helps no one. And it puts a lot of people in very serious jeopardy. So I thank you very much to the sponsors and everyone who's added their names to this. This is a great effort.
Hello, my name is Hannah Fahmy. I'm here today on behalf of Nevada Public Health Association. From a public health perspective, descheduling marijuana would allow for increased regulation oversight. By standardizing doses and the sales of the product, it will also allow for research to be conducted at the federal level, which can tell us more about how marijuana impacts the body and the brains of people that are using the substances. NPHA urges the committee's passage of this measure. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. Isaac Hardy, representing the Urban Consortium, which is made up of Reno, Sparks, Las Vegas, Henderson, and North Las Vegas. I will keep it brief. We are in support of AJR 8, and we urge the committee's support as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in Carson City who would like to come to the table and support? Okay, seeing none, we will go to Las Vegas. Again, please push the button to speak, the microphone button. Speak and spell your name slowly for the record, and you may begin when ready.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman Gorlow and esteemed committee members. For the record, my name is Brianna Padilla, BrianaPadilla. I am here before you today in my official capacity as the Executive Director of the Chamber of Cannabis, Nevada's largest and most diverse business trade organization for the cannabis industry, to convey our strong support of AJR 8. Comprised of more than 62 businesses and 400 industry professionals, the Chamber creates a more conscientious, inclusive, and thriving industry by moving commerce forward, restoring justice, and positively impacting our community. And AJR 8 does exactly that by calling for the descheduling of cannabis. As we all know by now, through scientific, anecdotal, personal, and economic examples, cannabis is far from a dangerous drug with no medical use. Instead, we've seen our industry and this plant not just change hearts and minds, we've seen them heal hearts and minds, in some instances quite literally. By legalizing cannabis in Nevada, not just once, but multiple times through the passing of medical and then recreational cannabis, dispensary delivery, and most recently consumption lounges, Nevadans have spoken. What these laws all prove is one thing. Nevadans demand and deserve access to a safe, well-regulated, and competitive cannabis industry. By passing AJR 8, you affirm the status quo that our citizenry has already called for, and you put the onus on our federal government to do the same. It is high time that the cannabis industry and the tens of thousands of patients, professionals, and community members who support it receive the same protections, benefits, and resources that every other industry gets. While the war on drugs has failed, it will never be over until we see the cannabis plant fully decriminalized through descheduling. I have also submitted a letter to the committee on behalf of our organization supporting this crucial piece of legislation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Go ahead when you're ready, please.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Hadina Felice, Hadinafelice, a board member of Chamber of Cannabis and a patient myself. I am testifying in support of AJR 8. I too was there knocking on the door for people to vote to legalize recreational cannabis in 2016. Medical cannabis has been shown to have a wide range of benefits for patients suffering from a variety of medical conditions, including chronic pain, anxiety, and epilepsy. However, despite growing evidence of its medical potential, the federal government still classifies cannabis as a Schedule I drug, making it difficult for researchers to conduct studies and for patients to access it. Allowing medical cannabis research and investments would enable further exploration of the medical potential of cannabis and, most importantly, to develop new treatments for patients like me. Descheduling cannabis in Nevada would remove unnecessary legal barriers. The state has already established a thriving cannabis industry with a well-regulated market for both medical and adult use. Descheduling cannabis would allow for greater growth in the industry, creating more jobs and generating tax revenue for the state. Cannabis doesn't belong in Schedule I drug. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Next person, please go when ready.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman and committee. Thank you for listening. My name is PJ Belanger, legally Patty, Patty, Belanger. I am a cannabis patient, but first and foremost, I am a certified health educator, certified wellness educator, certified in kinesiology, and I'm an author in nursing magazines for cannabis. And I have been fighting with patient-to-patient group, and I am now also represent IPA, Integrative Practitioners Association. I want to redirect all of our attention back to how this became a Schedule I, which was a deception and a manipulation by the lobbyists for lumber and textile industries. And the cannabinoid system that we have in our body was taken out of the medical books and medical training curriculums. So if you were to go back to what is originally honest, that would be that would never it never belonged on it as a Schedule I to begin with. It's an herb from the ground. In Exodus in the Bible, it was actually in the anointing oils. This is, I actually was producing a documentary called Divine Compassionate Medicine. I myself came from an absolutely horrific childhood. And if I had known that this was medicine, all the years the 23 years that I believed the propaganda against it, my parenting would have been different. Things for my children would have been different because I was diagnosed with PTSD and ADHD and drugged as a child, my whole childhood for the ADHD. Who knows if that destroyed my immune system, right? Then overcoming lupus, goiters, Graves' disease. I've survived 2 heart attacks. I'm 60 years old, never ever dyed my hair because I've dealt with my health all naturally from the earth. And this was from the earth. It's from God. It doesn't belong in the any federal government's hands in any way. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next person, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair Gorlow and members. For the record, Jason Greninger, JASON, GRENINGER, and member of the Chamber of Cannabis and CEO of Atlas Alchemy. It was a pleasure meeting all our legislatures in Carson City on Monday with our Chamber of Cannabis, and I want to thank you all for such a wonderful reception and opportunity to communicate about our cannabis industry. As requested by some members, I sent all of you an amalgam of hundreds of peer-reviewed experimental data on our endocannabinoid system and cannabis, and the link was to PhysRev, the source for peer-reviewed data. In summary, we have an endogenous cannabinoid system, an ECS, that makes 150 endogenous cannabinoids. Cannabinoid keys. Your body uses these keys to manage equilibriums throughout your body, including diet, sleep, stress, pain, anxiety, sugar, and more. All our cell membranes have up to 37 types of receptors for these cannabinoid keys. Many of you have heard of CB1 or CB2 receptor in school. That C stands for cannabinoid. These keys are considered retroactive neurotransmitters, which means they create change in the nucleus of the cell out. We make our own endogenous THC, and it's called anandamide. Ananda means bliss. Cannabis makes 144 known phytocannabinoids, and they are true mimics of our own endogenous keys for cellular equilibrium. Only 7 plants are known to make cannabinoids, and most few. And we have an incredible opportunity to help Nevada to unlock the door to that library first and be the example leading the industry in adult and medical use, and lead the industry in understanding how these molecules can help and harm us humans. And Schedule I prevents that research and funding for that research. I support AJR 8, and thank you for your time and consideration, and happy to answer any questions you have on endocannabinoid system or deep medical questions regarding a receptor process. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Is there anybody else in Las Vegas who would like to testify in support of AJR 8? Okay, seeing none, I think our phones might be working. So if you would like to call in support of AJR 8, that number is 888-475-4499 with a meeting ID of 8722-422-6355, and then press the pound sign. Broadcasting, do we have anyone on? Any callers that would like to testify in support of AJR 8?
To testify in support of AJR 8, please press *9 or raise your hand in Zoom to take your place in the queue.
Hello. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and Committee. My name is Christina Thomas, spelled CHRISTINA and I am in support of AJR 8 as a medically retired veteran that is a patient at UCLA and Cleveland Clinic under medical care for the last year and under doctor's intensive inpatient and outpatient care for the last 16 years. I've been on every schedule of medication to include being a part of the studies for the VA, University of Colorado, University of Utah, and the VA Whole Health previously pilot program known as Integrative Health formed out of Salt Lake City, Utah. My care has multifaceted, and we later found I was misdiagnosed and have been treated for the wrong conditions due to Western medicine not being open and inclusive to the patient's living experience in full anatomical, endogenous, and endocannabinoid systems. I bring this to your forefront as I've had to use my veteran benefits to invest in furthering my higher education into plant medicine as my Western medicine protocol was no longer working. I used chemotherapy and DMARDs, biologicals, neurological, and psychological pain management for the last 16 years with oversight from the VA and other outside care with secondary diseases caused due to the nature of research and exploration. I am the only person alive in medical history with these conditions, and there is no protocol due to toxic exposure as a veteran as well. That was until I created through alchemy and that further study in plant medicine and traveling through distances to find natural sources of healing. I learned about Pacific College of Health and Science, and I learned there was another protocol that I was to work with doctors and cannabis doctors and nurses on a non-medical track to put that blood work with the biochemical science and the technology to build a dosage and protocol work with the complex issues. I went through 120 different chemovar strains to determine how and what dosage. I am not a medical doctor, but I seem to care enough to create a solution that not only worked before in another place, such as Israel and the Middle East, but I began teaching the medical professionals that I worked alongside so that they could see working these licenses in hands but their licenses were tied in their hands. I had to do it alone. This is where it gets very dark. I gathered my research, barricaded myself in my home as I knew I was not able to carry on with that Western medicine protocol and I was deteriorating from the inside out. Due to that, I had to go through a near-death experiencing while going through 1 month long and experiencing in-home defecation, vomiting, detox at a level through everything I learned from that evidence-based therapy through the VA. But no one was able to do it because of their licensees and the insurance. I had to pay for all of these things out of pocket. So my cultural experiences and being multicultural myself, I would have to go back and forth to the ER so that I would not be out of control and have no way of having my fluids regulated with a homeostasis.
Ma'am, I hate
With that being
interrupting,
the
but you're
property
past
of-
your 2 minutes.
Sorry about that. Thank you.
Thank you. If you do have written testimony, please feel free to get that to our committee secretary and we can upload it. And I do really appreciate you sharing your story. Broadcasting, next caller, please.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. Will Pregman representing Battleborn Progress. We are absolutely in support of the resolution, simply ditto previous remarks related to the economic and health benefits that cannabis offers. Please pass the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last numbers 456, please press *6 to unmute your phone. Again, caller with the last numbers 456, please press *6 to unmute your phone.
Good afternoon, Oscar Williams, OSCAR, WILLIAMS. I am in support of this proposal because it's odd. This is an old discussion. I'm a little older than some people in the room maybe, but back when I was in college, I actually had a debate class about legalizing marijuana, and I took the pro stance. And it came down to this one main fact. I actually thought about it repeatedly since then. It comes down to one main fact, and that is you can go to the store, you can buy aspirin, and you can take a bunch of aspirin and you can die. You can now, in Nevada, go to a dispensary, buy marijuana, and you can consume all you want, but you're not going to die. And yet, marijuana is treated like fentanyl. And it's just simply misclassified. There's so many medical benefits and things that we don't know, and it's been impugned because it's been classified in such a way for whatever reason. And here we have an opportunity to encourage the change that I think is long due. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Broadcasting, next caller, please.
Chair, there are no other callers to testify in support at this time.
Thank you very much. With that, we will close testimony in support of AGR 8. We will now open testimony in opposition of AGR 8. Is there anyone in Carson City who would like to come up in opposition? Okay, thank you very much. Please remember to state and spell your name, and you have 2 minutes.
Good afternoon, everyone. Joy Trushinsky, Trushenski, for the record. Now, I oppose AJR 8 because the CDC's website gives harmful side effects of marijuana, eating and smoking. Cancer is one, lung cancer if you smoke it. disorientation, mental deterioration, lethargy, anxiety, depression leading to suicide, hallucinations, and addiction. Long-term use can cause schizophrenia. Also, using marijuana can lead to a progression to more addictive drugs. Now, I have supported medical use of marijuana as directed by a doctor, but I have always opposed recreational use. And because there are these harmful effects that everybody ignores, but they are real. And so I ask you to reconsider your support of AJR 8. It's more, you should think of it not so much about the money, but about the people. Sometimes people, they choose the wrong thing. And I think, when it passed, it became legalized, I think that was the wrong move. But I know I'm in the minority, but I thought I would express my opinions today. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else who would like to come to the table in opposition of AJR 8? Okay, seeing none, we will go to Las Vegas. Is there anyone in Las Vegas who would like to testify in opposition of AJR 8? Okay, seeing none. Broadcasting, is there anyone on the telephone who would like to testify?
Chair, there are no callers to testify in opposition at this time.
Thank you very much. We'll close the testimony in opposition and go to testimony in neutral. Is there anyone in Las Vegas who would like to come to the table to testify in neutral? Okay, seeing none, we will go to Las Vegas. Is there anyone who would like to come to the table to testify in neutral? Seeing none. Broadcasting, is there anyone on the telephone who would like to testify in neutral?
Chair, there are no callers to testify in neutral at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. We will close testimony in neutral. Would the bill sponsors like to come to the table for final comments?
Again, thank you so much for hearing this Assembly Joint Resolution. Who am I? I'm Assemblywoman Brittany Miller. For the record. And thank you, Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno. But again, we really appreciate this and all of the comments and the questions that were made that just highlight just how necessary this is. And again, I personally just want to thank everyone, especially those of you that have a different letter in front of your political name. I think that, when Americans and Nevadans really look at what's going on in political institutions and especially in their legislative bodies, what they really want is for us to be working together and not to let letters and titles divide us. And they use the term working across the aisle. And so here, again, Nevada is able to stand up as an example of a beacon on so many issues where we can. I know we can't always, but really to demonstrate our bipartisanship and to let Nevadans know that we are up here working together, working across the aisle, working for good policy, working to represent their will and their demand. And again, we are now up to 37 signers, I believe, caught 4 more during the presentation. So again, that just speaks to the willingness and the partnership that we actually have as legislators here. And so with that, I thank you and I urge you to support Assembly Joint Resolution 8.
Thank you again, Ruben De Silva, for the record, for listening to this presentation. Don't panic, it's organic. And with that, I urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you both very much. I'm actually going to go to Speaker Yeager and see if he would like to waive the 24-hour rule.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. And given that we are one day away from our committee passage deadline, I am willing to waive a joint standing rule that requires a 24-hour waiting period. So you do have my permission if you'd like to work session this matter.
Do we need a motion on this?
Chair,
Yes?
I'm sorry for being so out of decorum right now, but I wanted to let you know that a third amendment of signers was sent to you, so that you would have it, so that in order to work session, you had all of the amendments.
Thank you very much. Let's take just a brief 1-minute recess while I confer with my peeps.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll come back together. Thank you very much. So I am going to ask for a motion to accept the third amendment, which should have additional sponsors. It looks like there is primary sponsor Assemblyman De Silva and Brittany Miller. Then other sponsors include Assemblyman Yeager, Assemblywoman Moreau Moreno, Assemblyman C.H. Miller, Assemblywoman Gallant, Assemblyman O'Neill, Assemblywoman Gonzalez, Assemblywoman Dickman, Assemblywoman Mosca, Assemblywoman Brown May, Assemblyman Carter, Assemblywoman Anderson, Assemblyman Ornlicker, Assemblywoman Torres, Assemblywoman Peters, Assemblyman Wynn, Assemblywoman LaRue Hatch, Assemblywoman Thomas, Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong. I've got you in here too, twice. Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno is listed twice. Sorry, she's really excited about this. Assemblywoman Cohen, Assemblywoman Taylor, Assemblywoman Considine, Assemblywoman Newby, Assemblyman DeLong, Assemblywoman Gorlow, and Assemblyman Watts. And then we have Senators Wynn, Hammond, Spearman, Donate, Harris, Orenshaw, Flores, Stone, and Neal. Did I miss anybody?
Did she miss anyone?
You want to be on it?
Assemblyman,
Nothing.
you have voted for 3 of my bills so far today. Let's keep this streak going. Okay.
Final call.
I am going to vote for it. You can put my name on it.
All right, we've got another one. So please add Assemblyman MacArthur to sponsor as well. So so we'll make a motion. I'm sorry.
Yes, and thank you. And this is Brian Fernley, Committee Counsel. We can also, as the legal division is preparing the amendment, if other members who haven't had a chance to be added want to be added, we can add that through drafting of the amendment if that's the committee's desire.
that works. Okay, so
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would make the motion that we amend and do pass AJR 8.
yeah, I have a second by Assemblywoman Dickman. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much. And with a floor statement, sorry, Assemblyman De Silva will give that floor statement to you. So thank you very much. And with that, we will move on to the rest of our work session. Okay, we will move on to Ms. Prohl, who will walk us through the work session documents.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Haley Prohl, Committee Policy Analyst with the Research Division of LCB for the record. As nonpartisan staff, I can neither advocate for or against any measure that comes before you today. The first measure on work session today is Assembly Bill 66. This was heard on February 21st. The measure makes various changes to the administrative functions and procedural operations of the Commission on Ethics. The measure addresses matters relating to requests for advisory opinions, cooling off periods, ethical standards of conduct, ethics complaints, and the application of Nevada's open meeting law to the activities of the Commission. The measure distinguishes between rendering a decision and issuing a written opinion and provides extra time to the Commission for issuing written opinions. In addition, the Commission may request additional information needed to issue an advisory opinion from the requester and his or her legal counsel. Certain materials in hearings are confidential and exempt from the OML. However, the Commission may hold an open hearing upon the waiver of confidentiality and must take final action on an ethics complaint in a public meeting. Additionally, the measure sets a 2-year statute of limitations on past conduct for the purpose of advisory opinion jurisdiction. The measure revises the filing of ethics complaints, including permitting certain extensions for investigations and issuing opinions, as well as setting forth the circumstances under which a complaint may be dismissed. Assembly Bill 66 clarifies that the participation of a subject in an investigation and enhances the protections of the identity of a person who files an ethics complaint, including a person serving as a witness. Finally, the measure revises existing standards of conduct relating to cooling off provisions, misuse of government resources, disclosures and abstentions, and government contracts. There are 2 amendments for this measure. There are documents attached for both. The first comes from the Commission on Ethics, and it was in response to concerns from the City of Henderson regarding expanding cooling off requirements with respect to vendors of government agencies. And the amendment proposes to, 1, clarify that the chair may not extend the Commission's 2-year statute of limitations, 2, narrow the contract activity that triggers a cooling off requirement, and 3, allow the Commission to consider the contract amount compared to the agency's total budget or the vendor's total revenue when determining the level of seriousness of an ethics violation. The second amendment proposed by this committee is based on an amendment to the 2021 version of this bill, which is Assembly Bill 65. And the amendment would create a new chapter on legislative ethics in Title 17 of Nevada revised statutes and enact separate ethics provisions for the legislative branch. And the document that is associated with the second amendment provides a little bit of information about Assembly Bill 65 from the 2021 session, which is also available on Nellis. And then there's also an additional exhibit provided with this meeting on Nellis, which is an excerpt of minutes from a meeting in 2021 that discussed the amendment to AB 65. So it provides a little more detail and information on exactly what the amendment does.
Thank you very much, Ms. Prohl. Committee members, are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion to amend and do pass.
So moved.
Okay, I have a first from Vice Chair Miller and a second from Assemblyman DeLong. Any discussion on the motion? Yep. Please go, Assemblyman Speaker. Yeager.
Thank you, Chair. I just I wanted to say I appreciate the the second amendment, the one that aligns with what this body did in 2021. I realize the fate of that bill was a governor's veto, but I still believe that that process was more justified, that the legislative branch would have its own say over ethical matters that come before its body. I think that's an important recognition of the separation of powers. And so with that amendment, I will be supporting the measure. I would not have been supporting it without that amendment that showed up similar to 2021. So just wanted to put that on the record, and hopefully the bill will be met more favorably this time should it get through our House, through the Senate, and over to the governor's office.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much. And I'm going to assign that floor statement to Assemblywoman Newby. Okay, next bill I believe we have is Assembly Bill 190. Ms. Prohl, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Assembly Bill 190 was heard in committee on March 30th. It requires title companies and certain apartment associations and property management companies to distribute voter registration forms to persons who complete a real estate transaction or sign a lease at the time of closing or at the signing of the lease. The Secretary of State must prescribe by regulation the content of and instructions for completing such voter registration forms, which must allow a person to register to vote, update his or her voter registration, or cancel his or her voter registration. Assemblywoman Kansama proposed the attached amendment, which eliminates the requirement for a title company and certain apartment associations and property management companies to distribute voter registration forms, and instead provides that any title company, apartment association, or property management company may distribute such voter registration forms.
Thank you very much. Members, are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion on amending to pass Assembly Bill 190. Okay, I think I have Assemblyman Hibbets and then Assemblyman De Silva was second. Okay. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay.
Nay.
Okay, we have one nay. That comes from Vice Chair Assemblywoman Miller. And the motion carries. I will assign the floor statement to Assemblywoman Kansama. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, the next bill we have is Assembly Bill 242. Ms. Prohl, you can move forward when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Assembly Bill 242 was heard in committee on April 11th. The measure requires the use of a mechanical voting system when voting in person at a polling place, and repeals certain provisions relating to paper ballots and the discretionary use of mechanical voting systems. Additionally, the bill requires each polling place, with certain exceptions, to provide at least 2, an increase of 1, voting booths that are specifically designed, designated, and equipped for elderly voters or voters with disabilities. County and city clerks and election board officers must be trained in using such accessible voting booths and specially equipped voting devices so they may assist the voters who use these booths. The Office of the Secretary of State proposed the attached amendment, which does the following. Allows for the use of ballot marking devices that are already approved for use by the United States Election Assistance Commission and have been certified for use by the Secretary of State, requires ballot tabulation by mechanical devices only, and incorporates mail ballots into the definition of a mechanical voting system.
Thank you very much. Members, are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion on amended to pass Assembly Bill 242.
So moved.
And a second? Okay, we have a first by Speaker Yeager and a second by Assemblywoman Moreno. Any discussions on the motion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Nay. Okay, please raise hands for the nays. Okay, we have Assemblywoman Dickman, Assemblyman DeLong, Assemblyman Hibbets, and Assemblyman MacArthur. The motion carries, and I will assign that floor statement to Assemblywoman Gonzalez. You are very welcome. Okay, we will move on to Assembly Bill 246.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Assembly Bill 246 was heard in committee on March 28th. And I think I'll just focus on the amendment since it did substantially change the bill. The amendment is from All Voting is Local and 1 APIA Nevada, which, among other things, does the following. Revises the threshold of determination for providing voting materials in a certain language to 5,000 voting age citizens of a limited English proficient minority group. Provides that once the state has a population of at least 20,000 voting age citizens who are members of an LEP minority group and who speak a single language, then the Secretary of State shall fund and help administer the statewide provision of voting materials in that language. Removes the requirement for a county or city with 3,500 or more registered voters to provide a toll-free telephone number for translation services relating to an election, and instead provides that any county may provide such a number. Clarifies that the language translation requirements of the bill also apply to Nevada's effective absentee system for elections. Requires the Secretary of State to review population data on a biennial rather than annual basis, and to notify local election officials of any new language translation requirements in their jurisdiction, and revises the membership of the Language Access Advisory Committee to include the Registrar of Voters or his or her designee from Clark and Washoe counties, and a county clerk appointed by the Secretary of State.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to. Okay, Vice Chair Miller is a first. Do we have a second? We have a second from Assemblywoman Gonzalez. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Nay. Please raise your hand for our nays. We have Assemblywoman Dickman, Assemblyman DeLong, Assemblyman Hibbett, and Assemblyman MacArthur. The motion carries, and I will assign that floor statement to Assemblywoman Torres. Thank you very much. Our next bill is Assembly Bill 286.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Assembly Bill 286 was heard in committee on April 4th. And again, I'm going to focus on the amendment since it did make substantive changes. The amendment was proposed by Assemblywoman Miller, which does the following. Removes language establishing polling places and ballot drop boxes in county jails, local jails, and certain juvenile facilities, and provisions allowing a family member to deliver a prisoner's mail ballot, and instead provides that county clerks and facility administrators shall coordinate to establish procedures for in-person voting and the collection and security of absentee ballots. Strikes all references to juvenile facilities and replaces the term prisoner with individual in the custody of a county or city jail, or a similar variation of the phrase as applicable. Provides that access to voting through ease or by absentee ballot for individuals in the custody of a county or city jail must be available for early voting periods in addition to Election Day. Clarifies that the ability of an elector in the custody of a county or city jail to request a form to register to vote shall not be limited to any specific schedule. Clarifies that a county or city jail shall not open a voted and sealed absentee ballot under any circumstance, and prohibits campaigning or electioneering on or near the premises in which the votes are cast, and provides that an elector in the custody of a county or local jail shall vote free of coercion or intimidation.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, are there any questions? Assemblyman Hibbett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And this question is for legal in consultation with the bill sponsor. I just want to confirm that in looking at the amendment, change number 10 that says, I'm sorry, not number 10. I'm looking at the wrong one. Change number 20 that says delete sections 10 through 14, and then change number 22 that says delete section 16 does not delete the existing law that is currently there. It deletes the change, the original proposed change to the law, and doesn't affect the current existing law.
Yes, that's correct. So that amendment would just remove the changes to existing law from the bill, and so existing law would remain unchanged in this case.
Thank you very much. I appreciate getting that on the record.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion to amend and do pass Assembly Bill 286. I have a first from Assemblywoman Gonzalez, a second from Assemblyman De Silva. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much, and I will assign that floor statement to our Vice Chair Miller.
Thank you, Chair.
You are very welcome. Okay, our next bill is Assembly Bill 394.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Assembly Bill 394 was heard in committee on April 6th. The measure requires the Secretary of State to adopt by regulation a procedure to be used if the abstract or certification of results for any election is not timely prepared or transmitted, and provides that ballots may only be counted once except as otherwise required during an audit or recount. There are no amendments.
Thank you very much. Members, are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion to do pass Assembly Bill 394.
So moved.
I've got a first from Vice Chair Miller, second from Assemblyman Miller. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Nay. Okay, please raise your hand for the nays. I have Assemblywoman Dickman, Assemblyman DeLong, Assemblyman Hibbets, and Assemblyman MacArthur. The motion passes. And we will assign that floor statement to Assemblyman Miller. Okay, moving on, we will go to Assembly Bill 399.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Assembly Bill 399 was heard in committee on March 30th. It creates the Subcommittee on Education Accountability of the Interim Finance Committee, which must meet at least once every 6 months to discuss, evaluate, and make recommendations relating to accountability and pupil education in this state to improve educational achievement and outcomes for pupils. In addition to studying certain topics, the subcommittee may also conduct investigations in connection to its duties and compel the attendance of certain individuals at a meeting. The subcommittee consists of 5 members of the Assembly and 3 members of the Senate, to be appointed by the Speaker of the Assembly and Majority Leader of the Senate, respectively. The Chair of the IFC shall appoint the Chair and Vice Chair of the subcommittee. Additionally, the bill provides that a joint meeting of the Assembly Committee on Ways and Means and the Senate Committee on Finance that has agenda items similar to the objectives and functions of the subcommittee constitutes a meeting for the subcommittee. Assemblyman Yeager proposed the following conceptual amendments to the bill. 1, amend subsection 5 of section 3 to include any member of the State Board of Education or a local school district board of trustees to the list of those whose attendance can be compelled at a meeting. And 2, amend the effective date to be upon passage and approval so that the chair of the IFC has maximum flexibility as to when to appoint the members of the subcommittee.
Thank you very much. Members, are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion to amend and do pass Assembly Bill 399.
So moved.
I have a first from Assemblyman De Silva, I think a second from Vice Chair Miller. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much, and we will assign that floor statement to our Vice Chair Miller
Thanks,
as well.
Chair.
Next, we will go on to Assembly Joint Resolution number 5.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Assembly Joint Resolution 5 was heard in committee on April 4th. The measure proposes to amend the Nevada Constitution to authorize the legislature to provide by law for the operation and regulation of lotteries, including without limitation the sale of lottery tickets. The proposed constitutional amendment includes language clarifying that 1, the legislature shall not pass any laws which grant a special charter or similar governing document to any person or entity to operate a lottery or sell lottery tickets. 2, political subdivisions of the state shall not operate a lottery or sell lottery tickets. And 3, the operation of any charitable lotteries must comply with existing provisions in the Nevada Constitution governing charitable lotteries. There are no amendments for this measure.
Thank you very much. Members, are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a... Whoops. I'm so sorry. Assemblywoman Dickman.
Not so much a question, just a comment. I just think that the lottery this would create would be in direct competition with our gaming industry, our brick and mortar gaming industry that provides lots of jobs, many of them very good paying jobs. And, You know, this is the same gaming industry that pays most of the taxes in our state. The other thing I would say is, from what I've seen with lotteries, in my experience over many, many years, we had a lottery in Michigan. It usually turns out to be sort of a voluntary tax on poor people. And so those are just some of the reasons I will be opposing. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, are there any other questions? Oh, Assemblywoman Newby.
Yes, thank you. I had a question that came up just recently, and it's the question about lottery tickets. The language I see specifies lottery tickets, which to me says something that it's physical, like a ticket. The concern that was brought to me was that there would be a fully online virtual possibility, and my read of this is that no, this is for sale of physical tickets and not of fully virtual online lottery.
Thank you very much for the question. I would assume that too, but that's why we have legal. So, Mr. Fernley, could you please tell us a little bit more?
Yes, thank you. I think, so the language of the resolution is currently drafted says that the legislature may provide by law for the operation and regulation of lotteries, including without limitation authorizing lottery tickets to be sold. So that reference to lottery tickets is sort of it's not a limiting thing. It's an example. It could include other methods of doing a lottery because it does say including without limitation authorizing lottery tickets. So there are other things that could be authorized other than selling lottery tickets.
Thank you. So I will ask to elaborate because this would pass here this year, pass another time, then go to the voters. Then that current legislature would be making those rules.
Correct. If it was passed by the legislature in 2023 and 2025, it would go to the voters after that. And then subsequently, the legislature would establish by law, the operation, how the lottery is operated and regulated. And one specific example of those things is authorizing the sale of lottery tickets, but there could be any number of other things that could be authorized.
Thank you. Did that help, Assemblywoman? Okay, thanks. Assemblyman Miller, did I see your hand up? Yes. Okay, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to reiterate that this enables the state to create a lottery if it so chooses to. It does not establish a lottery in the form of online or tickets or any of that. It just allows the state to move forward if the people of Nevada so choose. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members, any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to amend and do pass.
So moved.
Oh, just do pass, I'm sorry. So we're going to accept a motion to just do pass. There's no amendments.
So moved.
Okay, Vice Chair Miller, second. Assemblyman De Silva. Okay, any discussions on the motion? Yep, please go ahead, Speaker Yeager.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate the time. And I just, I heard the comments from committee members, and I just wanted to, I guess, reiterate that we're all elected here to do what we think is right and do what we think is right for our constituents. In this particular instance, we're not the ones deciding whether there would be a lottery or not. This is the first step of a process that would ultimately take it to all of Nevada's voters. And I think when I think about that, I think about the ballot questions that we have now. We have arguments for, we have arguments against that are printed and written for folks to look at. For those of you who serve on Leg Commission, one of the duties we have is to bless that language when it goes to the voters. So, I think these arguments that we have heard, if this were to pass this session and next session, those will go to the voters, and ultimately it's the voters of Nevada who will decide whether we want to remove this prohibition from our Constitution or not. And so I'm supportive because I'm willing to put that trust in the voters to decide what they think is best. We don't always agree. Our voters don't always agree, but we know after the outcome of that election, we're going to know whether the voters, by a majority, want this to come out of the Constitution or not. So there would still be a lot of work to be done to set up a lottery if the voters went in that direction, but I feel comfortable giving this question to the voters, and therefore I'll be supporting the resolution.
Thank you very much. Any other discussions on the motion? Okay, Assemblywoman Dickman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I really appreciate that. And just to respond to the comment, I used to feel that way too, about if it's going to the people, that's great. But have we seen what's happened in campaigns with ballot initiatives? And, there's so much money put into them to influence the people, and not all of the time are they honest. So, just a comment.
Thank you. We'll have a comment by Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I wasn't going to say anything, but after that last comment from my colleague, I have to. We trust the voters to vote for us, right? We trust when they go to the polls that we've done our job, we've listened to them, they've heard us, and they make a choice between who is on that ballot to come to Carson City to represent them. And in response to a comment that was made earlier, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate our casino and resort industry. They are the backbone of the state of Nevada. We are a hospitality state. That is not going to change by having a lottery. We have people who go to casinos and gamble, go to a show, and still make the drive across the border to buy a $5 ticket when the Powerball is huge. The reason I signed on as a co-sponsor of this legislation is because the constituents in my district and throughout the state ask for it. And my job as a legislator is to be their voice in Carson City. And so by putting this to a vote of the people is what we should do. I'm not making the decision. My co-sponsor is not making the decision. It's putting it to a vote of the people, and if the people say no, then it's a dead issue. But I trusted the voters to vote for me, and I trust them to make a decision on this ballot matter. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Any other discussions on the motion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Nay. Please raise your hand for the nays. We have Assemblywoman Dickman, Assemblyman DeLong, Assemblyman Hibbets, and Assemblyman MacArthur. The motion carries, and I will assign that floor statement to Assemblyman Miller. Thank you very much. And then we next have Assembly Joint Resolution number 6.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Assembly Joint Resolution 6 was heard in committee on April 6th. It proposes to amend the Nevada Constitution to adopt the National Popular Vote Compact, which, if effective through adoption by states cumulatively possessing a majority of the electoral votes, requires the chief election official of Nevada to determine which slate of candidates for president and vice president wins the national popular vote, and provides that the nominees for presidential elector whose slate of candidates for president and vice president is the national popular vote winner become the presidential electors. The compact requires the presidential electors in this state to mark their presidential elector ballots for the national popular vote winner unless there is a tie in the national popular vote, in which case the presidential electors in this state shall mark their presidential elector ballots for the winner of the popular vote in Nevada. The amendment to the Nevada Constitution proposed by this resolution also provides that Nevada may withdraw from and rejoin the compact through statute, though the compact prohibits withdrawal from the compact within 6 months before the end of a president's term and before a president or vice president are qualified to serve the next term.
Thank you very much. Members, are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion to do pass Assembly Joint Resolution 6. I have a first from Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno.
Second.
Oh, hold on just a second. I am sorry, Mr. Fernley has some comments.
Thank you. I apologize for that. There were some comments made during the hearings about potential constitutional issues with this proposal, and I just wanted to address those for the committee. The arguments were made under two potential clauses of the United States Constitution. The first one is the Electors Clause, which states that the appointment of presidential electors by the state requires that each state shall appoint in such manner as the legislature thereof may direct a number of electors equal to the whole number of senators and representatives to which the state may be entitled. That refers to an act of the legislature to govern the manner of appointment of electors. But there is a similar clause of the United States Constitution which directs that the election of senators and representatives is conducted in the manner prescribed by the legislature of each state. So looking at those two provisions, the United States Supreme Court has held that an act of the legislature really means a legislative action, meaning an action to make a law. And in this case, it would be the voters of the state making a law, and therefore it would be a legislative action consistent with the Electors Clause of the United States Constitution. The other argument was made under the Compacts Clause, which prohibits states from entering into compacts with other states without the consent of Congress. And thus, the issue was presented whether the National Popular Vote Compact would require an act of Congress to become effective. Well, the United States Supreme Court has held that the only interstate compacts that are subject to the clause are those that would enhance state power to the detriment of federal supremacy. According to the court, the test is whether a particular compact enhances state power with respect to the federal government. And as I mentioned before, the United States Constitution expressly delegates to the states through legislative action by the legislature or through the voters the manner of selecting presidential electors. So any agreement among the states about how those states select their presidential electors cannot enhance state power because that is already a state power. So it is the legal division's view that these changes through the Nevada Constitution would be defensible.
Thank you very much. Members, are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, so we have Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno she did the first for the do pass, and was it
Second.
Vice Chair Miller second? Are there any questions on the motion or discussions on the motion? Speaker Yeager.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Sorry for talking so much today. This is an exciting agenda in legislative operations and elections. But much like the last resolution, what I'd say on this is I think opinions on this topic are varied and they're very strong and passionate. And I think we remember those of us who were here last session remember that this was a very interesting vote on the Assembly floor. I don't remember what it was on the Senate floor, but I like this resolution because, again, we're giving it to the people of Nevada, right? We have an electoral college. It has its own history. We don't need to relive that. We talked about it at the hearing, but why it was established. And I think it is time to ask our voters, do we want to be part of this compact or not? And what I particularly like about the way this resolution is crafted is that it gives statutory authority to be able to withdraw from the compact. If it were a question of putting it in the Constitution and we would be locked in for all time and all eternity, I would probably be in opposition to that because I think we would have to see how this would work, but the ability for future legislatures to come forward and say this isn't right for the state, I think that gives me quite a bit of comfort. So I look forward to supporting this, and again, letting our voters decide this very, very important question. We are sent here to do their work, but sometimes I think questions rise to the magnitude where we have to give it to the voters, and so hopefully this will go to the voters in the near future, and we will enact their will, whatever that may be.
Thank you very much. Assemblyman DeLong.
Thank you, Chair. I apologize. It's actually a legal question brought up by the speaker's comments, and it brings up the concept if this is passed and then the future legislature passes a bill to remove it or to leave the compact, usually a bill has to go to the governor for either approval or veto. But the Constitution, the U.S. Constitution gives that power to the state legislatures. Is there a conflict there? And I'm asking legal on that.
No, I don't believe so. So how that would work is the proposed constitutional amendment would authorize the legislature by law to withdraw from the compact. So that saying that it's by law would require a passage by both houses of the legislature and the signature of the governor in order to withdraw from the compact. So it would require both a bill enacted by the legislature and the governor's signature to withdraw from the compact.
Quick follow-up, but then aren't we giving some of our authority to the governor with regards to whether or not we're determining how we're dealing with our electors?
Thank you. No, as I was mentioning in the Nevada or in the U.S. Supreme Court cases, it refers to the lawmaking power, and the lawmaking power is actions by the legislature and signatures by the governor. So that is consistent with the U.S. Constitution that it's the exercise of the lawmaking power in the states, which is passage by the legislature and signature by the governor.
Okay. Thank you. Committee members, any other discussions on the motion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay? Nay. Okay, raise your hands for the nays. We have Assemblywoman Dickman, Assemblyman DeLong, Assemblyman Hibbett, and Assemblyman MacArthur. The motion passes, and I will give that floor statement to Assemblyman Watts. Okay, next we're going on to, I believe it's our final one, Assembly Concurrent Resolution number 3. Please go ahead when ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The final measure on work session is Assembly Concurrent Resolution 3. This was heard in committee on March 16th. The measure directs the Joint Interim Standing Committee on Growth and Infrastructure to conduct a study during the 2023-2024 interim of the laws administered by the Nevada Transportation Authority and the Taxi Cab Authority, and to report the findings and any recommendations to the 83rd session of the legislature. There are no amendments for this measure.
Thank you very much. Members, are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to do pass ACR 3.
So moved.
I'm sorry, what? To adopt. Sorry.
So moved to adopt.
Okay. I have Vice Chair Miller. The second? Okay, second by Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno. Any discussions on the motion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much, and I will give that floor statement to Assemblyman De Silva. You are very welcome, and with that, we will close out our work session and move on to our next agenda item, which is public comment. Please remember that public comment, you have 2 minutes to speak. I'm going to say that number again, but I can't find it. Sorry. Hopefully you wrote it down before. So is there anyone in Carson City who would like to come to the table to speak in public comment? Okay, seeing none, looks like
Could
we
you
have.
tell me, you guys took a long time to get to this point, and I had to run
Let
back
me go
over
to
from
Las
another
Vegas.
location.
Could you please
What are
speak
we-
and spell your name for the record?
Which bill are we talking about?
We're on public
Are we
comment.
talking about,
We're
are
already
we
done
on
with all of our work
AJ?
session. We're on public comment.
oh, okay, well, sorry. My name is Susan Prophet. I'm the Vice President of the Nevada Republican Club. I wish I'd gotten here just a few minutes earlier because I have some pertinent information that might help you in making a decision. I suffer from pain. I have since '94. I am disabled, although it's not evident. I have been given enough opioids to put down a horse or two in the past, but I will tell you that I switched to pot because I did not want to become addicted, and it was at the request of a doctor in Illinois, and it was the best thing I ever did. Until then, I thought it was a gateway drug and thought it was the most horrible thing, and refused to let my family get anywhere near it. Now I realize it has improved my condition substantially, and yet now I've got to warn you, we need to do something about this. The opioid limits were lifted when Obama took office. And unfortunately now I can walk in there and get a prescription for 90 pills at a time. We're going to see the addictions rise if we don't address that issue, please. It's very important. It doesn't take very long to get addicted. I've lost 3 of my family members to addiction. One was murdered with fentanyl. One had a sudden heart attack 5 months earlier, and the other one was taking prescribed Ambien. So we must put some kind of limits on these drugs that Big Pharma is prescribing and have some sort of oversight to that. So if you could pass this bill, it would save me an enormous amount of money because I'm having to pay through the nose to get what works so I can avoid getting addicted. Please pass that bill.
It sounds like you're speaking about AJR 8, and you'll be happy to hear that we did work session that already. So it did pass, and it'll go to the floor.
God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else in Las Vegas who would like to testify in support? Or not testify in support, we got public comment, sorry. I'm really thinking dinner right now, sorry.
I'm just so glad to hear you guys laughing for a change and working together across the aisle. I want to see more of that. We need 2 strong parties that get along. Keep doing it.
Thank you very much. Broadcasting, do we have anyone on the telephone that would like to provide public comment?
If you would like to provide public comment, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to provide public comment at this time.
Thank you very much. Committee members, any final comments or words? Okay, no. Thank you very much for being with us today, and be good to each other out there. Oh, no, you don't. I guess she does. Assemblywoman Dickman. With that, be good to each other, and we are adjourned.